Hey guys, so today we're going to be installing the 460 Saginaw conversion kit that we make. This kit is a great upgrade for any of your big block 460 F250s or F350s, and the factory Ford pump is notorious for whining. We've also put like bigger tires on this truck, so this pump has more pressure, makes the truck drive a lot better on road with these wider tires that have a bigger contact patch. Our kit's all inclusive, comes with the hoses and the fittings, the pump, the pulley, the bracket, and it's a bolt-on deal, so it's not going to take us long. We're going to start the process now and walk you through the whole thing. So the tools you're going to need are pretty straightforward, just basic hand tools. I got a couple of nut drivers here. This is a 1/4 inch and an 8mm or 5/16. You can use a flat blade screwdriver. You don't have nut drivers. I just like those. We also have 11/16 and 5/8 for the pressure lines on the box, 10mm and a 15mm. And a 19 3/4 for the tensioner. That's really all you're going to need. For this install, we decided to order a new tensioner. We figure it's a good time to do it. The kit does not come with this, but if you'd like to put the new tensioner on while you're in there, it's a great time. While doing an install like this, on an older truck especially, I always recommend while you have the belt off to check the other components. Check your water pump, check your alternator, things like that while you have a chance to spin them and see if there's any drag or any bad bearings. It's a great opportunity to fix those things if needed. So this truck is a 97, so it's a mass airflow truck. Yours may look slightly different. If it's a speed density, it'll have 2 individual tubes coming. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, you need to get this intake tube out of the way, however yours looks. So with this one, we're gonna loosen these hose clamps here and just pull this little snaky looking boot out of the way. Go. And just set that off to the side. At this point, we're gonna take the wiring connections that go to the distributor and the AC compressor, and we're gonna pop those off and just move them out of the way. And I'm gonna grab my 10mm, take the AC compressor off, and loosen the tension on the belt and take the belt off. Okay, so I've loosened all 4 bolts on the AC compressor. I'm gonna pull these bolts out of here, set them off to the side, and then I'm just gonna take the compressor and just kind of set it out of the way, making sure not to damage anything. Next thing we need to do is remove the tensioner itself. And once the tensioner is removed, we can get to these bolts behind it. Now we got the tensioner off, and we are going to remove the 4 bolts that attach the bracket to the cylinder head. I've already disconnected the hydraulic lines from the gearbox itself and drained the fluid out. And you're going to want to remove those lines from the gearbox and remove the return line that's on the frame rail, because we're going to provide you both lines new and fresh. So I'm now taking the 4 bolts out of this. And you want to keep these bolts because you will be reusing them on the new bracket. All right, the belt's out of the way, lines are disconnected, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the old pump from the engine compartment. So one of the things about these old pumps that is complete junk is this plastic reservoir. Obviously, after 30 years, this thing is susceptible to cracking. Aside from that, the pump itself doesn't work very well. So that's one of the major upgrades with the Saginaw style pump. Also, it has the billet aluminum pulley over a plastic pulley, metal reservoir, larger reservoir. So a bunch of really, really good upgrades when you do one of these conversions. So like I said, installation is just like removal. We're literally ready to install the new product. We are going to set this in place and install the bolts and just do reverse of removal. Reusing the factory bolts, and these bolts go directly to the cylinder head on the 460. So sitting here, I have the old power steering pump and the pressure hose that you're not going to reuse any of. This is the original return line. It's actually supposed to be kind of like a built-in cooler. It goes across the crossmember. Some people really like this idea. We did some testing early on with our 302 351 and realized that it didn't really work. So we eliminate it and we give you a simple return line. If you would like to use this, you can reuse it. That's totally fine. You just won't use the part we give you. We recommend just getting rid of it. Do whatever you feel is better, but we're going to do it this way. So this is going to be your new return line. We're going to convert the gearbox from inverted flare to -6, and we're going to provide you the fitting that you need. Now, the only place that people get a little confused here is that when you convert the gearbox, both fittings to matching fittings, you could get them mixed up, and you don't want to do that. So we provide an instruction sheet that shows exactly how they're supposed to go. Pay attention to that. It's very, very important not to crisscross them. The return line is your soft line. It's not a crimped line. This is your high pressure hose. This is going to your pressure side. Return goes closest to the firewall. Pressure goes closest to the front bumper. So as it sits in the gearbox, they're going to look like this. They're going to connect on the box with on the pump with two completely different style fittings. So you can't mess it up there, but you can mess it up on the box. So just be very, very cognizant of that. So I'm going to show you now the adapter fittings in the box, and then the pressure and return lines installed, and then how to connect them to the pump itself. Okay, so you can see now that I have the return adapter -6 with the rubber hose here, and the pressure adapter with the crimped -6 here. These are going to be a very simple connection up to the pump. You want to make sure that when you route them, they don't rub on a pulley or have anything that could chafe them, and that they're not kinked. So just a nice meandering flow is ideal. So it's very easy to do that. You don't really have much obstruction, but just be aware that you don't want them kinked, and you don't want them to be, obviously rubbing up against anything that could damage them prematurely. So for this install, we have already installed a new gearbox. If you're not installing a new gearbox, we do recommend evacuating all of the old power steering fluid that is in there. Most of the time on these Fords, it's ATF, and with the new power steering pump, we are going to use power steering fluid. So we don't want to contaminate ATF and power steering fluid. So the way you do that is you take those new lines or the old lines while they're still connected to the box, you hang them down below into a catch can, and you turn the steering wheel with the vehicle off, left and right. That's going to pump out all the fluid and evacuate it out of the box. You're not going to get every single last drop. It's not physically possible, but you want to get as much as you can. That way when you top off with power steering fluid, you're not contaminating 50/50 ATF and power steering. Again, with this truck, we already put a new gearbox on, so the gearbox is fresh and clean, doesn't have any ATF in it. And then again, power steering fluid exclusively for the new system. All right, so I've connected the new return and pressure line to the back of the power steering pump. The return is this soft rubber hose, and it gets a hose clamp right there. So you're just going to tighten that hose clamp, and the other one is -6. This is a steel fitting, so we're using an 11/16 wrench, and just tighten it like that. Now you can see the hoses, like I said, they have a nice meandering flow. They're not rubbing up against anything. You do not need any type of Teflon sealant, any type of dope on them. Those are all connections that do not need any type of sealant. So everything's going to get assembled dry. No pipe, no tape, no dope, no nothing. We touched on this before. We decided to put a new tensioner on this while we're doing the install. Again, this does not come in the kit, and it's not a requirement. We figure it's an older truck. It's not going to hurt anything to replace this part while we're there. You want to check those bearings if you are reusing your old parts to make sure they spin nice and don't have any drag. So we've already tightened these 4 bolts that hold the bracket to the cylinder head. You do need to do that process first because this does block one of the bolts. One of the cool things about this kit is it actually uses the factory belt size, so you will not need to replace the belt, and if you do need to replace the belt at some point, nothing special has to be done with the belt size from stock. So you're just going to use a stock size belt for your model truck. So now we're gonna grab the AC compressor. We've already installed the tensioner. So this is just gonna go right back on like stock. Again, we didn't have to undo any of these AC line connections. We just flopped this thing out of the way temporarily while we did what we had to do. And then you're gonna use the stock 8mm bolts and tighten them back down. We got the AC compressor back on. We're gonna put our belt back on, and we're gonna grab hold of this tensioner with a 5/8 wrench or socket. The new tensioner's got some pretty good tension, so be careful. Once you have the belt on, you want to make sure that it's in all the grooves, down on the harmonic balancer, around the tensioner. Looks like we're good to go there. So now we just need to re-plug in the things that we disconnected, which is the distributor. There's a little hole there for the factory clip to pop in. We're gonna plug in the backside pressure switch here for the there we go. All right, so everything's plugged back in. We've got the belt back on, AC compressor bolted down, lines are connected. We can put this boot back on, fill it with fluid, and then I will show you the bleeding process. You want to make sure you get all the air out of it. That is super, super important. And we'll go to that next. Okay, so we're gonna start filling the power steering reservoir with fluid. We have our Napa power steering fluid here. This gallon is way more than you would need. A quart, maybe a quart and a half max is gonna take care of it. So just keep that in mind when you go to buy it. You don't need to get a gallon. We're gonna use this long funnel just to help us get down in there. And again, remember, your intake tube may look different depending on the year of your truck, but at the end of the day, the concept is the same. We gotta fill the reservoir. So, it's hard to see down in there without light, but you're gonna wanna fill the reservoir up, check it, make sure you don't overfill it. Okay, we got it up right near the top of the neck. This next process is extremely important. So you do not want to have air in the system. And if you were to start the truck right now, it would take all that fluid down and it would just fill the system with air, which is really bad. So we're gonna leave the cap off. We've used these two jacks and we've just jacked the wheels up off the ground. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna put the key in the ignition, do not start the car, and we're gonna cycle the steering wheel back and forth, just nice and slow, okay? This is gonna suck that fluid down into the gearbox and keep from pulling in air bubbles and save you a whole bunch of headache. You get air bubbles in there, it can actually cavitate the pump and ruin it, but it also can make a lot of noise. So we're gonna look in there, we're still below the full level, so we're gonna top it off. Looking pretty good. We'll do that cycle process one more time, and then we're gonna do what we call a short start. Short start is like a 1-second startup. That's gonna ensure that we don't, if it is being held up by an air bubble, that it doesn't run dry. So short start's gonna be a 1-second start. We're gonna do that after we do this cycle procedure. Okay. Turn the key off. Check it one more time. All right, we're just gonna put a smidge more fluid back in the reservoir here. That should do it. Now we're gonna do our short start. Again, a short start is exactly what it sounds like. It's like a 1-second startup. You could also pull the coil wire off and turn the engine over, but I just do it this way. That'll be a pretty good indicator if our air bubbles are out. The fluid level still looks proper. This has a dipstick on it, so you can check the cold level. We're coming up on the stick. So I'm still gonna leave the cap off now. And I'm gonna go ahead, put the truck down onto the ground. And now we're gonna start it up again. We can just leave it running. Make sure we don't hear any funny noises. Make sure the belt's tracking properly. We're gonna look at that fluid level. Fluid level still looks good. We can go ahead and put our cap back on. Hear how quiet that thing is? So much better. I mean, what a difference. And I'd say just one more time for good measure. After we turned it like that, just check the fluid level again. Perfect. So that's really it. That completes the install. It's pretty straightforward. We're gonna go ahead and take this thing for a test drive. Don't forget your light. All right, so we're on the road. Immediately, I feel such a huge difference in the way that this thing feels. I mean, once I put the 35s on it, I really noticed the shortcomings of that factory power steering pump. You got a lot more rubber touching the road, and it not only made a bunch of noise, but it had some resistance. Now it feels like it's just way happier. Oh my gosh. I'm super stoked on this whole thing because, you know, I've had Broncos and F-150s for a long time and always did these upgrades. And then once I got this 460 truck, my tow rig here, it was really lacking, and this was really what motivated us to get this product done, and something we talked about for a while. We get a lot of calls on it. That's it for the install. This product is officially live at DesolateMotorsports.com. If you have any questions regarding the product, feel free to reach out to us, sales@DesolateMotorsports.com, or you can always shoot us a call. We're super excited about it. We hope you are too. Thank you much for watching.